Hi, I'm Phil Waba, a senior writer at Fortune. Levi Strauss and Company is a company that's never been shy to tackle the big social issues of the day, whether it's environmental protection, gun violence, racial inequity, social injustice. And to be doing that at the same time as a massive pandemic is creating upheaval in its business, creates enormous leadership challenges. So I'm really delighted today to have Chip Bergh, the CEO of Levi Strauss and Company, as well as Tracy, Layney, the Chief Human Resources Officer of Levi's, to talk about how to lead at this really difficult time for any company. So thank you for being with us, Chip and Tracy. So why don't I dive in? Let's go back to March, because we all want to relive March, right? The pandemic is declared, and a lot of your clients on the wholesale side are really taking a hit. You're taking a hit as well. Nobody knows what's coming next. Employees are nervous. So how do you reinsure your employees at a time people are hearing about potential furloughs, or we don't know how long this is going to last, keeping them focused on the goal? So as managers, how did you make sure people didn't get too freaked out by this and could continue to help you steer the company through this crisis? So why don't we start with Chip?
Well, Phil, first, thanks for inviting us to join you here today. You know, Levi Strauss and Company has been around for 167 years, and I think part of the reason we have that long run is because of our values. We talk about profits through principles, and we believe there's just a real linkage between our values and business results. And, you know, so when the pandemic happened, we actually saw it coming at us because we're a big global company. We were dealing with it in China in January and February, but I don't think we expected it to be the freight train that it turned out to be. But we were guided through this entire period of time and still are up to this day by our values. It was very, very easy for us to declare that we're going to put our employees front and center through this. We're going to look out for their health, their safety, their well-being, especially our frontline employees. So, you know, having a strong set of values and a commitment to those values and really believing that those do translate to business results became the bedrock for us as we navigated through this pandemic. And it still does to this very moment.
So, Tracy, just to follow on that thought, the CEO of Hyatt Hotels earlier in the session talked about the mental health aspect of all this and remote working. But more broadly speaking, what can you in your role do to make sure employees are productive, but also help them protect their mental health as much as an employer can?
Thanks, Phil. And again, thanks for having us. I think that is paramount to this moment, right? And so I did listen to that earlier session. I think the focus on well-being is something that I know many of my peers in the CHRO role are thinking about, as well as all of us at LS & Co. You know, I think we noticed, I think after those first few months of just the shock of it and the adjustment, that the new routines people were settling into weren't always healthy, right? We've talked even in the chat today about things like burnout from Zoom and things like that. And just the juggling everyone had to do, whether they're, doing Zoom school with their kids or they're isolated from their friends and family. So we really took this as a holistic approach, right? I think we thought, okay, we have to really make sure that managers across this organization can be empathetic to Chip's point, lead with our values, but lead with empathy in how they manage employees. And that has been something that, we talk about all the time, that we really meet employees where they are, understand what their needs are, and are coming in to provide support, whether that's mental health support or other ways. We have structured time off in our corporate employee ranks to really let folks kind of step back and recharge. And I think what's really important as we think about this conference today, how do we take this focus on things like well-being and also putting those into the future in a post-pandemic world? Because this has surfaced something we always knew was there, which is the need for the focus on all of our mental health.
So, of course, the business is facing a big challenge. Everybody in apparel is, and most retailers are. And so I don't know about hiring levels at Levi Strauss and all that, but is it harder for companies, do you think, to reach diversity goals if hiring is paused, at your company or elsewhere? I mean, people have a lot of companies have diversity goals, and I'm just wondering if it's going to be hard for many of them to reach it in this environment. So I don't know.
But first, I would, a couple of things. The pandemic obviously shined a very bright spotlight on racial equality and racial justice issues across the country. And it was kind of a moment of reckoning. And for us as a company, it was a moment of reckoning. For me as a leader, it was a moment of reckoning because we took a really hard look at where we are from a diversity and inclusion standpoint. And when we did that, the ugly truth is we aren't where we need to be. But we decided that we were going to declare that. We actually published our diversity results, our diversity data for the United States on a total U.S. employee population basis, as well as by management level. And from a total employee standpoint, we look pretty good. But if you strip out our retail stores and our distribution centers, and you really take a hard look at where are we from a management standpoint, we are not where we need to be. And, I declared that is an issue because I fundamentally believe that a diverse organization is going to outperform a homogenous one every single day. And we have clear opportunities here. So not only did we publish the data, but we made a series of commitments of what we're going to do to achieve a more diverse workforce. And, the pandemic increases the difficulty of the dive in some ways, but in some ways it also opens up new opportunities for us. The ability to attract employees who will be in jobs that could be remote, kind of on an almost ongoing basis allows us to reach a more diverse population, since San Francisco is not necessarily one of the most diverse cities in the country, especially with Black leaders. And so it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. But one of the things that we're absolutely committed to as a company is making significant progress against this. Tracy, you probably want to add.
Yeah, I think all those are excellent points. And again, as we think about even the theme of today, I love to think about the opportunities that come out of the things we've learned in the last year and how we catapult forward into the future. Certainly, as Chip said, finding pockets of talent that are more diverse than maybe where our headquarters are. That's something I think is really compelling. I also think the other flip side of being more diverse, which we're very committed to, is making sure we're very inclusive, that we really have this inclusive culture. Chip started by talking about our values. Our values permeate all aspects of our culture. And we also have this iconic brand that informs our culture, right? And so as we think about what we aspire to from a diversity and inclusion perspective, it also is that inclusion, that relying on our culture. And again, I think that will also help us even in a more remote work environment. It's proven to in the last year that we've been able to really maintain that strong culture, even though a lot of us aren't physically together. So I think that's the other piece that we really are focused on, in addition to our diversity, is the kind of culture of inclusivity that will really help us even emerge stronger from this time.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the issue of culture, because I think, in a workplace where people know each other, there's a reservoir, right? People have interacted before, they know who they are. But after 11 months and 2 weeks, who's counting? I am. Is there not an erosion to it? And then there's the question of when you bring new people in, they might not really understand. There are a lot of subtleties that in human interaction you don't see on Zoom. So, do you guys have thoughts on how to safeguard your culture, which of course is very important to your company's success in this kind of environment, after 11 and a half months?
I think Tracy is really well suited to speak to this because she joined the company literally as the lockdown started. She was supposed to start, I think, April 1st. And when the pandemic happened, it kind of scuttled all of her vacation plans between two jobs. And she said, I can start early. And I think she can speak to, there are people on her team she has not met in person, face to face. I've seen Tracy in person, face to face, I think once or twice since the pandemic started in person. And so we do have a very strong culture. I think it's one of the strengths that we have as a company, but she can speak to how we've tried to keep it strong during this period of time.
Yeah, I mean, it has certainly been it's interesting experiment. And I know you had another person on earlier who's in the same boat. And I think as we go on, this is more and more normal, right? This is becoming, we've onboarded many people in this past year, myself included. And, so it's interesting because I have no pre-pandemic experience at LS & Co. I don't, right? My whole experience has been this. And I think what it forced us to do is be very intentional, right? Intentional about reinforcing our culture. So, and some things are pretty basic, right? But very important. So one example is we have an all-company meeting every 2 weeks. It's called Chips and Beer because it features Chip. There's not usually beer there because usually it's earlier in the day, but it's really open. It's an open forum. People can ask Chip anything. Any employee in the entire company will ask him anything and he will answer it. And that is a cadence we've gotten into. We used to do them much less frequently, is my understanding, but now we have it all the time. And that's been really important. The other thing I think that has made it intentional is, again, we've relied heavily on our values, as we've talked about, our brand, as we've talked about, and also making sure that we're listening to our employees. So through a forum like that or other forums, so that we really understand what employees need at any given time and we can respond, whether it's with well-being, whether it's really with, you mentioned at the top, Phil, how we've used our voice externally. We are very vocal on social issues, especially in this past year, voting, diversity. Those are things our employees want to hear from us and expect of us. So because we have this way we talk in the world and then the way we actually engage, and it's still pretty, focused way with one another, I think it has been really helpful to maintain that globally, even though so few of us are together.
Yeah, I think it's just to build on that.
Here, go ahead.
I was just going to build on it for one sec, Phil. During a moment of crisis, or and it's been more than a moment, during a year of crisis, I think one of the things that's been really, really important for me as a leader is to be visible, to be open. So we do these chips and beers, and because everybody's remote, we've been doing them over Microsoft Teams, and we'll have 2,000, 2,500 managers dialed into it. And we leverage the chat function and everything else where we get lots of questions. But, we're living in an environment where we're having meetings in people's bedrooms and in people's living rooms, virtual meetings. And so having a high degree of empathy and being and listening, I think, has been really, really important through this crisis. And then responding to the feedback that we're getting from employees about the stress that they're under and the needs that they have. And we've got multiple examples of where we have responded just to keep folks engaged. And I think that's been really, really important through this.
Okay, in our last few moments together, as I said at the beginning, the company and you've been very outspoken on some social issues, and of course the country is extremely polarized now. Does it make you wonder if that's risky at a time? You don't want to lose any customers unnecessarily, or is it just now's the time to live your values?
In short, it is who we are as a company. When we did our IPO, it was part of our IPO roadshow. I told investors, if you don't like the CEO taking a stand on ending gun violence in this country, this is not the stock for you. If you don't like a company that's willing to take a stand on the importance of climate change and making real commitments to ending it, this is not the company for you to invest in. We actually believe that it helps our business. I think we've got pretty good data on that, particularly over the last couple of years. You can't stand for everything, so you do have to be choiceful. And that's one of the things that we've really tried to do is be very, very specific about the issues that we are going to weigh in on. But it's who we are. And it's an important responsibility of me and the team to make sure we're weighing in on the most important issues.